Starting a day with guitar is like starting a day with sunshine, isn't it? Again, my name is Pastor Bob Miller, and again, a welcome to you all who are worshiping with us today. Today, we kick off our new series. It's a 5-week series. It's entitled Bless, 5 Ways to Connect with God and Community. So for 5 weeks, we'll be covering how each of the letters of the word bless they stand for a very accessible and practical practice that every single one of us can do. Practices, not surprisingly, are grounded in something biblical that we talk about a lot here at Plymouth First Church. You know the passage. A Pharisee, in an effort to test Jesus, asks Jesus, "What is the greatest commandment in the law?" Jesus replied, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your being, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. You must love your neighbor as you love yourself." In other words, love God, love neighbor. Now, the who in the first half of the commandment is pretty straightforward, right? It's the one true, living, loving God. And we talk a lot about the who in the second half, expanding our secular definition of the term neighbor to embracing what is more aligned with how Jesus would define neighbor, which is essentially basically anybody that we encounter. So in both halves, the imperative is to love. And I submit that doing the second half in many ways supports doing the first half as well. And so, in many ways, we'll be talking about how to love, how to bless others, because God blesses us. And when we share that blessing with others, well then, blessing is returned to us. And then the more we are blessed, the more we want to share that blessing with others. It's a positive feedback loop that I'm convinced that God designed creation with right from the very start. And when you get right down to it, there's no greater blessing than the good news of Jesus Christ. It offers hope when times are tough. It's strength and support in our weakness. It's guidance when we're confused with mixed signals. It's joy amidst adversity and when life is hard. It's forgiveness and love when we're immersed in doubt. The gospel of Jesus Christ is the source of life, both now and to eternity. The good news of Jesus Christ is quite arguably the very best blessing we've received from God. And so, can you see how truly loving neighbor is ultimately about genuinely wanting and seeing others have a life-giving relationship with Christ and to find life in Christian community? Can you think of a more valuable blessing than to share the life-giving gospel of Christ? But it's at this point that most of us hit a brick wall. I mean, it's one thing to want others to know Christ. I mean, genuinely want them to know Christ. But it's a whole other thing to go out there and bring them to Christ. And we know Jesus tells us to do it, actually commands us to do it. In what we call today the Great Commission, Jesus says, "Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the end of the age." And he wasn't just talking to his apostles or to professional clergy. He was talking to all of us, all of his followers. Yet, going out there and doing that is hard. It's scary. And concerns start setting in. I mean, Do we have enough knowledge of the Bible? Will we put off people? Or worse yet, lose friends? Well, where will we find time? And besides, we're not so sure that people really want to hear about Jesus or the gospel. But turns out they do. In 2019, Rick Richardson wrote on some research around the unchurched that 79% of unchurched people agree with the statement, I don't mind talking to a friend about their faith if they really value it. In other words, people are seeking truth and faith, but they're also very experienced and wary about manipulative marketing. But a study by the Barna Group identified 3 top qualities that the unchurched person would value in someone with whom they would talk about spiritual matters. The first was listen without judgment. They would value someone who would listen to their questions and their stories, not to come to some verdict, but so that they could express their feelings and work through their experiences. And sadly, so the study identified, a vast majority of the respondents said that they had no one in their lives who would listen to them without judgment. And I'm guessing that this group did have some Christian friends in there. Crazy thing is, listening without judgment is something that all of us can do. Anyway, second, they wanted to be allowed to draw their own conclusions, to not have conclusions forced on them. Quite honestly, I think God would be consistent with that sentiment as well. I think a lot of the times we just need to get out of the way and let God do God's thing. We can love them, we can listen to them, we can interact with them, but then let God draw them in. Thirdly, and only after achieving the first and the second, they want to know our stories, our experiences as followers of Christ. And they want to know that it's real and genuine and that it's coming from a place of confident conviction. Bottom line, they are looking to hear about the good news of Christ from the perspective of a trusted, supportive friend. No hard sell, no definitive proofs, no demonstration of superior knowledge. Rather, someone who listens to them without judgment, who offers wise counsel and helps them make their own decision, and loves them no matter what. Personally, I find that pretty encouraging because those are things that we all can do. Because notice, none of this says convert them into being a Christian. We don't own that part. We can't actually do that part. I mean, we certainly genuinely want others in our sphere, people in our lives, in the world, to embrace the gospel of Jesus Christ and to realize all the benefits of being a follower of Christ. But only God has the agency to actually make that happen, which by no means lets us off the hook, nor do we want it to. We do have a vital part to play, and our part is to be a real friend. A friend who will live the good news, who will be the good news, and then share the good news in the form of our own stories, and in that order. When we embrace our part as friend, then all those concerns I mentioned earlier, those fears, well, they become non-issues. And that's really what this series is all about. Practical, easily accessible ways that each and every one of us can bless others. And through our example, let them see the realities of Jesus, of Christ in the world, ways that I am willing to bet, as you will come to see, you are already doing in one way or another. And we begin with what may be the easiest, but absolutely the most crucial practice of the five. We begin with prayer. And it's not like we don't have biblical/gospel precedent for doing so. Our focus text comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 6. Let me give you a little quick background. It's early in Jesus' ministry. He already has a number of disciples following him, but he has yet to choose the ones who will become apostles, the primary disciples of Jesus. Please follow along as I read aloud. During that time, Jesus went out to the mountain to pray, and he prayed to God all night long. At daybreak, he called together his disciples. He chose 12 of them, whom he called apostles. Simon, whom he named Peter, his brother Andrew, James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James the son of Alphaeus, Simon, who is called a zealot, Judas the son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who became a traitor. So you see, before identifying the linchpins, so to speak, of the vehicle that would form the foundation of his church, the starting lineup, if you will, Jesus prayed. Jesus prayed to God all night long, which is anything but unusual. Depending on how you count them, Jesus is recorded in the Gospels as praying 24 or 25 times. Jesus prayed before important decisions, before meals, before and actually after healing. He prayed alone. He prayed in public. He prayed for himself. He prayed a lot for others. His prayers were instrumental in accomplishing what he was up to doing at the time. But as well, they were every bit as instrumental in teaching us by his examples about the value of beginning with prayer. And we do know about the importance and power of prayer. Thing is, it's so easy to, at least speaking for myself, to get going on some project or task, to start heading in some direction without first taking the time to pray. Oh, I'm better at it than I used to be, but there's quite admittedly continues to be room for improvement. But thank God that God doesn't give up on us. But also thank God that God always answers prayers and does so in the very best way. So, how do we begin? First, begin praying for guidance. Guidance to open up your awareness to small opportunities to bless someone. It could be as simple as starting your day with, God, help me see where a simple gesture of kindness might change someone's day. And then repeat that simple one-line prayer throughout the day. Every one of us can pray this prayer, no matter who you are, where you are, or even what's going on in your life. And it may be simple sounding, but it's not the number of words that makes prayer powerful. It's the heart behind the prayer. And it's the one to whom you are praying. Second, and this is actually even more efficacious, even more effective. Begin by praying for people by name. And here's where that term neighbor can come in pretty handy. Literally, write down the names of your 8 closest neighbors that live next to you, and then begin praying for them by name every day. And if you don't know the names of all 8 of your closest neighbors to you, well, go out and find out their names. Maybe even pray that you'll learn their names. Or maybe instead of neighbors living nearby, it could be some other group or circle of acquaintances. Perhaps at work, or a group of friends, or a group that you engage in some kind of common activity. But people you already have some kind of encounter with. And again, simple, straightforward prayers. Nothing long, nothing drawn out. If you know some of the details of their lives, then lift up those details in their prayers. Or simply pray for their physical health, their relationships, their emotional well-beings, their careers, their finances. Pray that they may feel God's peace within their day. Just think how you would want somebody to pray for you, and then pray for them in that same way. Just be intentional about writing down the names of 8 neighbors where you work, where you live, or where you play. Then begin with prayer. You can do this. We all can do this. And you just might be surprised as to what you may see start happening around you. Anyway, next week we'll be moving on to the L in bless. We'll be talking about one of the most practical and yet powerful ways that you can love someone. And Jesus was a master at it, and he did it often, and it changed people's lives. And Jesus showed us how we can do it too. So you'll not want to miss next week. My good friends, may your heart be on fire for getting started in the blessing of others through straightforward prayers. May you be a vessel of God's dream of blessing others, or blessing. May you be a vessel of God's dream to bless people, other people, through his people. And may the love of God shine brightly through how we love one another. Amen? Amen.